Hello, my name is Lauren Sandler and I'm the Learning Specialist at the UF Teaching Center. In this video session, we'll be talking about test-taking strategies. Before we go into the specifics of that, I would like to talk to you about the 3 levels to success. The first comes from your preparation, the second comes from your actual test-taking, and then the third comes from your post-test. In this model, you want to spend 40% of your time preparing for the test, 20% of your time in the actual test, and then 40% of your time post-test. And we'll go over all the different ways that you can focus on this model and help you succeed when you're taking your exams. So first we have test preparation. What do you need to do to prepare well? Well, you should keep up with your readings and lectures. When you go to class, make sure that you're taking active notes and also make sure that you go to all of the classes, unless you're very ill. And then you want to make sure that you're doing multi-level reviews. Daily reviews consist of reviewing your notes from the previous class period, right before this class period, and then after class, review the notes that you just took. That way you're constantly reinforcing the information. Next, we have our weekly level reviews. At the end of the week, review all of the notes that you took, make sure that you're not missing any information, and that you understand the big picture and any important concepts. If you find a problem in your weekly review, you still have an opportunity to ask a professor, ask a friend, or your TA for help. And then, of course, we have our review right before the exam. If you do all of these, most test problems will take care of themselves if you're very prepared. There are 2 phases to test preparation. The first is maintenance studying, where it's a routine and it's throughout the semester, such as our multi-level reviews. You want to use environmental cues for maximum comfort and focus. So create a routine for yourself. For example, you come home from class, eat dinner, watch TV for an hour, spend 15 minutes on Facebook checking anything you need to check, and then you know it's time to sit down and focus. You'll turn the TV off, you'll turn the computer off, and just focus on your studying. But then we have our dry run level of studying, where it's part of your final test preparation and it's done right before the exam. You want to make sure that you're not very comfortable and not very familiar with the area because you want to mimic the test conditions that you'll be taking this exam in. So you want to make sure that you're sitting in a desk in a chair that's similar to the one that you'll be taking your test in the classroom, and also try to set yourself a time limit so you know how to manage your time and you have practice with that. Practice is the best way to prepare for an exam, so get as much of the accurate practice test material available. And during these practice tests, as I said before, try to mimic the test conditions. So think about what types of questions will be on the test, how much time you'll have on the test, what is the format going to be, and try to mimic the environment. So make it quiet, unless it's a noisy area that you're taking the test in, but usually it's in a quiet classroom. So if you can find an empty classroom somewhere and study in those conditions, you'll be very well off. And next, during our test, we have different types of test questions. So this is where our 20%, the actual event, takes place. So you have multiple choice questions. As you're going through these types of questions, use the process of elimination. Mark off any extreme answers because they're usually not correct. And make sure as you're going through these multiple choice questions that you're reading all of the answers. If it's a short answer type question, then try to find the key words in the question stem and then use those words in your answers. Be sure that you stay on point and on topic because usually short answer means that your professor doesn't want more than 2 or 3 sentences unless they tell you otherwise. And then next we have our essay type questions where your professor may ask you to write several paragraphs on a point, either defending your opinion or elaborating on a point that they make. What could be very useful is writing down any important facts or information that you want to include in your essay in the margins of your paper or on a piece of scratch paper. This way you can make sure that you have all of the key points that you wanted to make in your essay, so that way you don't have to focus on remembering what they are and you can focus on writing well. If your test is a paper test, so it's in class and you get to write on things, try to highlight, underline, circle anything on the test that'll help you know what your train of thought is when you go back and look at it later. So we have several types of question stems, but when it's a multiple choice question, analyze the question by covering the answers first. See if you can remember the answer without looking at the choices. If you can, then you're right on track. And if not, that's okay. Read the stem with each one of the answers and mark off the ones that are not correct by using your process of elimination. And so while you're taking the test, make sure that you're practicing good test time management techniques. Try to take the easy test first. Go through the test once, do as many of the questions that you can that come to you naturally, and then leave the harder questions for later. Once you've done that, make sure that you spend the majority of your time focusing on the higher valued questions. So usually professors will write how many points each question is worth. The more points, the more you should focus on it. So you want to gain as many points as possible before you run out of time. Speaking of time, you should always know where the clock is and always be aware of how much time you have left. If there's a good chance that you won't finish on time, plan accordingly. If you have 30 minutes left and 10 essays to write, know that you have to divvy up that 30 minutes and write as much as possible for each one of those questions. And if there's no penalty for guessing and it's a multiple choice test, make sure that you circle as many answers as possible, guess away. Just make sure that you get as many answers down as possible. A guess is better than no guess. And as I mentioned before, when you're taking the easy test, you'll probably be skipping a lot of questions. There are pros and cons to skipping, so I'll go over a couple of points with you so you can evaluate whether this technique is good for you or not. One of the pros to skipping is that it creates a floor beneath you. It minimizes the damage if you run out of time, and it can give you a lot of confidence. You might also find embedded clues to help you answer harder questions, so use the test to gain new knowledge if you, for some reason, missed out on something. Sometimes the answer for one question is mentioned or implied in the text of another question, so be aware of these types of clues and see if you can find them in the test if there are any. But then on the other hand, we have some cons to skipping. One of the cons is that you might skip too many questions and then start to panic. Stay calm and just do as best as you can in the meantime. Also, sometimes if the questions are sequential or if they're in a familiar order, it might interrupt the flow of the information that you have in your head. So when you're trying to see if you want to skip questions or not, think about these points and see which will work best for you. And then last we have our post-event where we should spend 40% of our time. Review the test that you took once it's over and also review your practice tests. See what sort of questions that you're missing. Are you missing questions because you don't understand the question stem or because of the answer choices? If the problem comes up that it's the stem, practice reading the questions and translating them, identifying keywords, and explain to yourself how to solve it once you know the answer. If the answers are the problem, then practice process of elimination. The UF Teaching Center has a lot of valuable resources to help you succeed during your time here at UF. We have individual study skills appointments, we have video resources on a variety of topics, and we have walk-in and private tutoring to help you with your course-specific questions. Good luck, and we hope to see you soon.
The Teaching Center, UF's Learning Resource Center.